I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. You either give my wife your room or pack your bags. My son Andrew shouted those words right in the middle of dinner that I had spent 3 hours preparing. He didn't whisper it. He didn't imply it. He yelled it in front of everyone as if he were giving an order to an employee. As if my bedroom, in my own house, was somehow up for negotiation. As if I didn't have the right to say no under my own roof. Sarah, his wife, was sitting right next to him with that small, controlled smirk she wore when she knew she was going to get her way. My sister-in-law Patricia looked away, uncomfortable, but staying completely silent. My granddaughter Emma pressed her lips together and looked down at her plate, her fork suspended in mid-air. No one defended me. No one said a word. And I, Laura Collins, 69 years old, a widow, a devoted mother for decades, just sat there feeling something inside me break in a strange way. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. For the first time in a long time, I saw the situation exactly as it was. My son was kicking me out of my own bedroom in a house I had lived in for 40 years, as if I were a nuisance that needed to be relocated. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I took a deep breath, put my silverware down on the table, and said in a voice so calm it surprised even me, "That's fine, Andrew. I'm going to pack my bags." The silence that followed was heavy. Andrew looked at me confused, as if he had expected yelling or tears. Sarah let out a nervous laugh. Patricia cleared her throat. Emma looked up, surprised. But I had already stood up, carefully folded my napkin, and was walking toward my room with my back straight and my head held high. That night, while they were still in the dining room pretending things were normal, I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hand. I wasn't crying. I wasn't paralyzed. I was searching for houses for sale facing the ocean. There was a listing that Rachel Wilson, my best friend, had sent me weeks ago. It was a small, pretty house with a deck and an ocean view. She had written, "Laura, look at this. Someday you and I are going to own houses like this, and we're going to toast while watching the sunset." I had responded with a laughing emoji, as if it were a distant fantasy. But that night, with the sound of glasses and fake laughter drifting in from the dining room, I opened that message and looked at it with new eyes. The house was 2 hours from the city. It had 2 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen, and a price that, though high, fit perfectly within my savings. Savings that I had put together for years. Years of working as an independent accountant. Years of saving every dollar that was left over after paying the bills for this house. Years of saying no to trips, to splurges, to things I wanted for myself, because there was always something more urgent. Andrew's college tuition, Andrew's car, Andrew's wedding, Andrew and Sarah's apartment rent when they couldn't afford it. I took a screenshot of the listing. I opened my banking app and checked my savings. I had exactly $210,000, and for the first time in decades, I thought something that made me feel dizzy and free at the same time. This money is mine. The house on the beach was listed at $180,000. I had enough, more than enough. And sitting there in the room I had shared with my late husband Robert for 35 years, the room my son now demanded I surrender, I made a decision. In the morning, I would call the real estate agent. I woke before the sun, after a night of fitful sleep. In the darkness, I thought about how we had arrived at this point. 5 years ago, when Robert died of a heart attack, Andrew and Sarah had suggested moving in with me. "To help you out, Mom," Andrew had said with what I thought was genuine concern. "You shouldn't be alone in this big house." At first it was nice having them around, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, things changed. Sarah started rearranging furniture without asking me. Andrew began making household decisions without consulting me, and gradually, I found myself retreating to my bedroom, the only space that remained truly mine. Last month, Sarah had started dropping hints about how the master bedroom had so much more space and how their room was cramped. I had politely ignored these comments. After all, this was my house. The house Robert and I had bought as newlyweds. The house where we had raised Andrew. The house where Robert had taken his last breath. But last night, it seems, subtlety had been abandoned. I looked at the clock. 6:30 a.m. Early enough that no one else would be awake. I slipped out of bed, got dressed, and made myself a cup of coffee. Then I sat at the kitchen table, opened my phone, and dialed the number for the real estate agent listed on the beach house. A man with a professional voice answered on the third ring. "James Thompson, Ocean Point Realty." "Hello," I said, surprised at the steadiness in my voice. "My name is Laura Collins. I'm interested in the property at 247 Shoreline Drive. Is it still available?" "Yes, Ms. Collins, it is. Are you looking to schedule a viewing?" "I am. Today, if possible." There was a brief pause, then he replied, "I can meet you there at 11 o'clock a.m., if that works for you." "Perfect," I said. "I'll see you then." I hung up and stared at the phone screen as if I had just crossed an invisible line. Maybe I had. Andrew came downstairs at 9 o'clock a.m., disheveled and yawning. He saw me sitting on the living room sofa and frowned. "Is breakfast ready yet?" "No," I replied without looking up. "I'm going out." "Where are you going so early?" "I have an appointment." He huffed, opened the refrigerator, and started taking things out as if this house were his. "Well, don't be out too long. Sarah wants you to take her to the mall later." "I won't be able to," I said, and got up from the sofa before he could respond. Andrew looked at me strangely, but he didn't say anything else. I went up to my room, which was now officially Sarah's, according to what had happened the night before, and took clean clothes out of my closet. I got dressed calmly, a pair of jeans that Rachel had convinced me to buy last month, a simple white blouse, my comfortable walking shoes. I looked in the mirror and saw a 69-year-old woman who still had clarity in her eyes and resolve in her jaw, a woman who had raised a son, supported a husband, managed a career, and somehow lost herself along the way. A woman who was about to take back control of her life. I left the house at 10 o'clock a.m. Andrew was watching television in the living room. Sarah was still sleeping. No one asked me where I was going. No one stopped me. I drove the 2 hours to the coast with the windows down and an old playlist of songs I used to listen to when I was young. When Robert and I would drive to the beach on weekends before Andrew was born. When life felt full of possibilities. It had been years since I had driven alone for so long. It had been years since I had done anything alone. There was always someone who needed something. There was always a call, a favor, an emergency. But that day, driving down the highway with the wind hitting my face, I felt light. My mind drifted back to last night's dinner and the events that had led to it. I had prepared pot roast, Robert's favorite, now Andrew's favorite. I had set the table with the good china, lit candles, even made Patricia's favorite lemon pie for dessert. Everything had been normal, pleasant even, until Andrew had cleared his throat and announced that he and Sarah had been thinking. "Mom," he had said, "the master bedroom would really make more sense for us. Sarah needs the extra space for her clothes, and the attached bathroom would be more convenient." I had frozen, fork midway to my mouth. "But that's my room, Andrew." "I know, Mom, but think about it. You're just one person. You don't need all that space. Our room is so cramped, and with Sarah's promotion, she needs a proper place to get ready for work." Before I could respond, Sarah had jumped in. "Laura, it would mean so much to us. Andrew and I are thinking about starting a family soon, and we'll need the extra room." I had felt my heart rate quicken. I understand, but... And that's when it had happened. Andrew's face had flushed and he'd raised his voice. You either give my wife your room or pack your bags. The memory made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. When had my son become someone who would speak to me that way? When had he started seeing me as an inconvenience rather than his mother? I arrived at the house at exactly 11:00 a.m. James Thompson was already there, a man in his 50s with a white shirt and a kind smile. Ms. Collins, it's a pleasure. Come in. The house was even prettier in person. Small, yes, but full of light. The windows looked directly out to the ocean. The deck had enough space for a table and chairs. I could picture myself there having coffee in the mornings, reading, listening to the waves. The kitchen was compact but updated, with blue countertops that reminded me of the sea. The living room had built-in bookshelves that could hold my collection of mystery novels. The main bedroom faced the ocean, with sliding glass doors that opened onto the deck. What do you think? James asked after showing me around. I stood on the deck, feeling the salt air on my face. Below, the waves crashed rhythmically on the shore. Seagulls called overhead. I think it's perfect, I replied. He smiled. Would you like to think about it for a few days? No, I said. I want to buy it now. James looked at me in surprise, as if he wasn't used to someone deciding so quickly. Are you sure, Ms. Collins? It's a major decision. I've been making decisions for 69 years, I told him. This is the first one I'm making just for myself. He nodded, still a little bewildered, but he took the papers out of his briefcase. He explained the details. The price was $180,000. I could make the transfer in 2 days. The house was debt-free and ready for closing. I nodded as he spoke, but in my mind I was already running the numbers. I had $210,000 saved. I would be left with $30,000 for whatever came next. For furniture, for utilities, for groceries, for a life that belonged to me. I signed the first documents right there on the empty kitchen table of the house that already felt like mine. James gave me his card, explained the next steps, and told me that I could move in within 72 hours if I wanted. Perfect, I told him. I want to move in within 72 hours. I left the house with the temporary keys in my hand and stood on the deck looking at the sea. The waves came and went with a constant, predictable, calm rhythm. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't demand anything. They just existed. On the drive back to the city, I called Rachel. I just bought a house, I told her when she answered. You what? Her voice was a mix of shock and excitement. The one by the ocean. The one you sent me. I bought it. Laura, oh my God, that's amazing, but... Wait, what about Andrew and Sarah? What happened? I took a deep breath and told her about last night's dinner, about Andrew's demand, about my decision. That little... Rachel didn't finish the sentence. I never liked how they treated you, Laura. But are you sure about this? It's a big step. I'm sure, I said, and I was. I've spent my whole life taking care of others. It's time I took care of myself. When are you moving? As soon as possible, in the next few days. Will you help me? Just try and stop me, Rachel said. I'll be there tomorrow to help you pack. But Laura, what are you going to tell Andrew? I thought about it for a moment. The truth, that I'm moving out, that I'm going to live by the ocean. And if he tries to stop you? He won't, I said with a certainty I didn't know I possessed. He wanted my room. He's getting the whole house. When I arrived home, it was late afternoon. Sarah's car was gone, probably at the mall where she had expected me to drive her. Andrew was in the living room, watching a football game. He looked up when I walked in. Where have you been all day? He asked, not bothering to hide his annoyance. Sarah was waiting for you. I had an appointment, I said, hanging my purse on the hook by the door. I told you that this morning. What kind of appointment takes all day? I looked at my son, this man I had raised, this man who now spoke to me as if I were a child who had broken curfew, and I decided to be direct. I bought a house, I said. Andrew's jaw actually dropped. You what? I bought a house by the ocean. I'm moving there in 3 days. He stood up, the football game forgotten. What are you talking about, Mom? You can't just buy a house without discussing it with me first. Actually, I can, I said calmly. It's my money. And after last night, I think it's clear that it's time for me to live somewhere else. Last night? He had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. I was just suggesting— You weren't suggesting anything, Andrew. You demanded that I give up my bedroom or leave, so I'm leaving. Mom, I didn't mean— Yes, you did. My voice was steady. You've been treating me like a guest in my own home for months now. You and Sarah have been making decisions about my house, my furniture, my life without consulting me. Last night was just the final straw. So you're just going to abandon us? Move out of your own house? I felt a flicker of guilt, but I pushed it away. I'm not abandoning anyone, Andrew. I'm making a choice for myself. You're a grown man with a wife and a job. You don't need me here. And clearly you'd prefer I wasn't. That's not true, isn't it? I looked him straight in the eye. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time you thanked me for cooking dinner, or doing your laundry, or paying the property taxes on this house? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of your housekeeper? Andrew had no answer for that. He stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Finally he said, Sarah's not going to like this. And there it was. Not, I don't want you to go, Mom, or I'm sorry for how I've treated you. Just concern about what his wife would think. I'm sure she won't, I said, but that's not my problem anymore. I walked past him and up the stairs to my room. It was time to start packing. The next morning, Rachel arrived at 10 o'clock a.m. with coffee and empty cardboard boxes. Operation Freedom is a go, she announced when I opened the door. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in days. You're ridiculous. I'm supportive, she corrected, handing me a cup of coffee. Now where do we start? We began in my bedroom, sorting through clothes, books, and mementos. Rachel was ruthless, encouraging me to leave behind anything I didn't absolutely love or need. New life, new stuff, she kept saying. We were in the middle of packing my winter clothes when Sarah came home from work. She stood in the doorway of my bedroom, taking in the boxes and suitcases. What's going on? She asked, her voice sharp. I'm moving out, I said simply. You can have the master bedroom now. Sarah's face registered shock, then quick calculation. Moving where? I bought a house by the ocean. You bought a house? Her voice rose an octave. With what money? My money, I said. The money I've been saving for years. Sarah's expression hardened. I thought all your money went into this house. Into supporting Andrew through college. Not all of it, I said. I've always kept my own savings for emergencies. And this is an emergency? Her tone was mocking. Rachel, who had been silent until now, spoke up. I'd say being told to give up your bedroom or get out qualifies as an emergency, wouldn't you? Sarah's eyes narrowed at Rachel. This is a family matter. And Laura is my family, Rachel said firmly. I'm helping her pack. If you want to make yourself useful, you could start bringing some boxes down to my car. Sarah ignored her and turned back to me. You're seriously going to leave? Just like that? What about Andrew? What about Emma? What about family holidays and dinners? I'm not dying, Sarah, I said, folding a sweater and placing it in a box. I'm moving 2 hours away. Emma is welcome to visit any time. As for holidays, well, I suppose we'll figure that out when the time comes. Andrew's going to be upset. Andrew was the one who told me to pack my bags, I reminded her. I'm just doing what he asked. Sarah opened her mouth to argue further, but just then we heard the front door open and Emma's voice calling out, "Grandma? Dad? I'm here." Emma, my 19-year-old granddaughter, was a sophomore at the local college. She often stopped by between classes, especially on Tuesdays when she had a long break in her schedule. "We're upstairs, sweetheart," I called back. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, and then Emma appeared in the doorway next to Sarah. She took in the scene, the boxes, the suitcases, Rachel and me on the floor sorting through clothes, and her face fell. "Grandma? What's happening?" I looked at my granddaughter, this beautiful young woman who had my eyes and her father's smile, and I felt a pang of sadness. Not regret, but sadness. "I'm moving, Emma," I said gently. "I bought a house by the ocean. I'm going to live there." "Why?" Emma stepped into the room, ignoring her mother. "Is it because of what Dad said at dinner? He told me about it. He feels terrible." "He feels terrible that I'm leaving," I clarified. "Not about what he said." "But Grandma, you can't just leave. This is your house." "It's just a house, Emma, and it's time for me to make a change." Emma looked at the boxes, then back at me. "Can I visit you at the Ocean House?" "Of course you can," I said, reaching for her hand. "You'll always be welcome. You can have your own room there." Emma's face brightened slightly. "Really? My own room?" "Really," I promised. "You can help me decorate it however you want." Sarah made a small, irritated sound. "Emma, don't encourage this. Your grandmother is being impulsive." "Actually," I said, standing up to my full height, which was still a few inches shorter than Sarah, "I'm being more deliberate than I've been in years. I'm making a choice for myself, instead of letting others make choices for me." Emma looked between her mother and me, clearly sensing the tension. Then, to my surprise, she knelt down next to one of the open boxes. "Can I help you pack, Grandma?" I felt a rush of love for this girl, who had always been perceptive beyond her years. "I would love that, sweetheart." Sarah stood in the doorway for another moment, then turned and walked away without another word. Emma and I exchanged a look. "She's angry," Emma said quietly. "Yes," I agreed. "She is. Dad's going to be angry too." "Probably," I admitted. "But sometimes people need to be upset before they can understand." "Understand what?" Emma asked, carefully placing one of my photo albums in a box. "That everyone deserves respect, even their 69-year-old mother and grandmother." Emma nodded slowly. "I get that. I just wish they did too." "They will," I said, hoping I was right. Eventually, we spent the next hour packing while Rachel told outrageous stories about her dating adventures as a 65-year-old widow, making Emma laugh until she had tears in her eyes. It was a good sound, that laughter, in the midst of all the tension and change. When Emma had to leave for her afternoon class, she hugged me tight. "Text me the address of your new place," she whispered. "I'll come visit as soon as you're settled." "I'm counting on it," I told her. After Emma left, Rachel and I continued packing. We were working in comfortable silence when I heard Andrew's car pull into the driveway. Rachel looked at me. "You want me to make myself scarce?" she asked. "No," I said. "Stay, please." Andrew's footsteps were heavy on the stairs. When he appeared in the doorway, his face was thunderous. "Mom, what the hell? Sarah just called me at work, said you're moving out?" Yes, I confirmed, continuing to pack. As I told you yesterday. I thought you were joking, or trying to make a point. I stopped and looked at him. I wasn't joking, Andrew. I bought a house. I'm moving there in 2 days. You can't just leave, he said, sounding remarkably like his daughter had earlier. What about this house? What about us? What about the house? I asked. I've already spoken to my lawyer this morning. I'm signing it over to you and Sarah. Consider it an early inheritance. That stopped him short. You're giving us the house? Yes, I said. It's paid off. All you'll have to cover are the property taxes and utilities, which you've been doing anyway for the past year. But why would you do that? Because I don't need it anymore, I said simply. And because despite everything, you're still my son, and I still love you. Andrew looked genuinely confused, as if he couldn't reconcile my actions with his understanding of me. I don't understand, Mom. If you're angry about what I said, we can work it out. You don't have to move away. I'm not moving because I'm angry, I explained. I'm moving because it's time, because I want a place of my own, because I want to wake up and hear the ocean, because for the first time since your father died, I'm making a decision based solely on what I want, not on what others expect of me. Andrew ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father that it made my heart ache. But what about holidays? What about Sunday dinners? What about me being available whenever Sarah needs a babysitter or you need someone to pick up your dry cleaning? I finished for him. He had the grace to look embarrassed. That's not what I was going to say. But it's what you were thinking, I said gently. Andrew, I'll still be your mother. I'll still be Emma's grandmother. I'm just not going to be at your beck and call anymore. He stood there for a long moment, processing. Finally, he said, Sarah's really upset. I know, I acknowledged, but she'll adjust. You both will. And there's nothing I can say to change your mind? No, I said firmly. My mind is made up. Andrew nodded slowly. Okay, then, can I at least help you move? Rent a truck or something? It was a small olive branch, but I took it. That would be nice. Thank you. He looked at the boxes, at Rachel, at me. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said honestly. You did, but you're not the first person to mess up, and you won't be the last. We'll figure it out. He nodded again, then turned to leave. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry about what I said at dinner. I shouldn't have talked to you that way. No, I agreed. You shouldn't have. After he left, Rachel looked at me with raised eyebrows. Well, that went better than expected. Did it? I wasn't so sure. He apologized. He offered to help you move. That's something. It's a start, I conceded. But we have a long way to go. Rachel patted my hand. One step at a time, Laura. One step at a time. The next 2 days passed in a blur of packing, paperwork, and preparations. Andrew rented a small moving truck. Emma enlisted 2 of her college friends to help. Even Patricia, my sister-in-law, who had been so silent during that fateful dinner, came by with boxes she had collected from her office. Sarah kept her distance, making herself scarce whenever I was in common areas of the house. When we did cross paths, she was coldly polite, as if I were a distant acquaintance rather than her mother-in-law of 7 years. On the morning of the move, I woke early before the sun. I lay in bed looking at the familiar ceiling, the patterns of light and shadow I had watched for decades. This room where Robert and I had shared our lives, where he had held me through the night when Andrew had a high fever as a toddler, where we had whispered our dreams and fears to each other over the years. I felt a wave of grief, not just for Robert, but for the life I had known, the life I was leaving behind. But alongside the grief was something else. Anticipation. excitement even. For the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to tomorrow. I got up, showered, and dressed. In the kitchen, I made coffee and toast, a simple breakfast on this momentous day. As I ate, I heard movement upstairs, Andrew and Sarah getting ready for the day. By the time they came downstairs, I had finished my breakfast and was washing my dishes. Sarah nodded stiffly in my direction before pouring herself coffee. Andrew approached me hesitantly. "The truck will be here at 10, he said. "My friend Mike is coming to help load the heavy stuff." "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." "Are you sure about this, Mom?" His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "It's not too late to change your mind." I dried my hands on a dish towel and turned to face him fully. "I'm sure, Andrew. This is the right decision for me." He nodded, resignation in his eyes. "Okay, if that's what you want." "It is," I confirmed. Sarah, who had been silently stirring her coffee, suddenly spoke. "What about holidays? Thanksgiving is next month." It was the first direct question she had asked me in days. "I haven't thought that far ahead," I admitted, "but my door will always be open if you want to visit." "At the beach?" She sounded skeptical. "That's a long drive just for dinner." "It's 2 hours," I said. "The same distance my parents drove every Thanksgiving to see us when you and Andrew first got married." Sarah had no response to that. She took her coffee and retreated to the living room. Andrew lingered in the kitchen. "She's taking this personally," he said quietly. "It's not personal," I assured him. "It's just me making a change that affects her routine." "Our routine," he corrected. "It affects all of us." "Yes," I agreed. Change usually does. The moving truck arrived precisely at 10, followed closely by Emma and her friends, and then Rachel with her SUV already filled with plants and fragile items she had taken the day before. By 11, a small convoy of vehicles was loaded with my belongings, far less than I had accumulated over a lifetime, but everything I had decided I needed for my new beginning. As I did a final walkthrough of the house, checking drawers and closets for anything forgotten, I found myself in the bedroom I had shared with Robert. It was already changed. Sarah had wasted no time in moving her clothes into the closet and placing her decorative pillows on the bed. But as I stood in the doorway, it wasn't Sarah's things I saw. It was the ghost of the room as it had been during my marriage. The bedspread Robert had insisted on because it was perfectly broken in, the reading lamp on my side of the bed, the framed photo of us on our 20th anniversary. "Mom," Andrew's voice startled me. "We're ready when you are." I turned to find him watching me from the hallway, concern in his eyes. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Just saying goodbye." "To the room?" "To the memories," I clarified. "The good ones, anyway." He stepped closer, suddenly looking like the boy he had once been rather than the man who had demanded my bedroom. "I really am sorry, Mom, about everything." "I know," I said, and I did. "But this isn't about punishing you, Andrew. It's about me finally doing something for myself, something I should have done years ago." "After Dad died, you mean?" "Even before that," I said softly. "Your father and I had a good marriage, but I lost a part of myself in it. And then after he was gone, I just kept going, kept putting everyone else first. It's what women of my generation were taught to do." Andrew was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Are you going to be okay, living alone?" "I am," I assured him. "I'm looking forward to it, actually." He nodded slowly. "And you'll call if you need anything?" "Of course," I promised. "Just like you can call me if you need anything, except a babysitter on short notice." That drew a small smile from him. "Fair enough." We walked downstairs together where Emma was waiting by the door. Everything's loaded, Grandma, she reported. Dad's friend Mike was a real pro at packing the truck. Thank you, sweetheart, I said, giving her a hug, for everything. I'll come visit next weekend, she promised. Maybe bring some of my homework. The sound of waves would be a pretty great study soundtrack. I'm counting on it, I told her. Sarah appeared from the kitchen, still keeping her distance. The drive should take about 2 hours if the traffic isn't bad, she said, her tone businesslike. You should arrive well before dark. Yes, I agreed. That's the plan. An awkward silence fell. Then Sarah said, We'll have a safe trip. Thank you, I replied. Take care of the house and each other. She nodded stiffly, then turned and walked back to the kitchen without another word. I looked at Andrew and Emma, my son and granddaughter, and felt a rush of love mixed with resolve. I should go, I said. Rachel's waiting. I'll follow with the truck, Andrew said. Emma's riding with me. I'll see you there, I said. I walked out of the house without looking back, got into my car where Rachel was waiting in the passenger seat, and started the engine. Ready? Rachel asked. I took a deep breath. Ready. As we pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Andrew and Emma stood in the doorway, watching me go. I raised my hand in a small wave, and they waved back. Then I turned my eyes to the road ahead, toward the ocean, toward my new home, toward the rest of my life. You know, Rachel said as we merged onto the highway, I'm really proud of you, Laura. For what? I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. For choosing yourself. Finally, I smiled, feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. It's about time, isn't it? Better late than never, Rachel agreed. Better late than never. The small convoy of vehicles arrived at 247 Shoreline Drive just after 1 p.m. As I parked in the driveway of my new home, I felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and terror. The charming blue house with white trim stood before me, the sound of waves audible even from the front yard. This was mine, all mine. Rachel squeezed my hand. Welcome home, Laura. I took a deep breath of salt air. Home, I repeated, testing the word on my tongue. It feels good to say that. Andrew pulled up behind us in the moving truck, with Emma following in her compact car. They got out, both looking around with undisguised curiosity. Mom, this place is gorgeous, Andrew said, surprise evident in his voice. Perhaps he had expected something less impressive, something that would confirm his belief that I was making a mistake. It's amazing, Grandma, Emma exclaimed, her eyes wide as she took in the view of the ocean visible just beyond the house. You can see the water from here. Wait until you see the deck, I told her with a smile. That's the best part. James Thompson, the real estate agent, was waiting for us on the front porch, final paperwork in hand. Ms. Collins, right on time, he greeted me. James, thank you for meeting us, I said, shaking his hand. These are my son Andrew, my granddaughter Emma, and my friend Rachel. After brief introductions, James handed me the keys, not temporary ones this time, but my own keys to my own home. Everything's ready for you, he said. Utilities are on, locks have been changed, and I took the liberty of having the place cleaned top to bottom yesterday. That's very thoughtful, I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. It's the least I could do, James replied. It's not every day someone makes such a bold, fresh start. I admire it. We completed the final paperwork at the kitchen counter, a counter that now belonged to me. As James left with a warm handshake and good wishes, I stood in the center of the empty living room, keys in hand, and allowed myself to feel the full weight of what I had done. I had left my home of 40 years. I had left the house where I raised my son, where I had lived with my husband, where I had built an entire life. And now at 69, I was starting over. "Mom," Andrew's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Where do you want us to put the furniture?" And just like that, the spell was broken, and the practical business of moving in began. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Andrew and his friend Mike carried in the heavier furniture: my bed, dresser, the small dining table, and my favorite reading chair. Emma and her friends unloaded boxes, following my directions about which rooms to put things in. Rachel supervised the placement of my plants and helped me unpack the kitchen essentials. By 6 p.m., the moving truck was empty, and the house was full of boxes and misplaced furniture. Andrew's friend had left, and Emma's friends had gone as well, citing evening plans. We ordered pizza from a local place James had recommended, and the four of us, Andrew, Emma, Rachel, and I, sat on folding chairs on the deck, eating and watching the sunset over the ocean. "I can't believe this view is yours now, Grandma," Emma said, her phone out as she took photos of the pink and orange sky reflecting on the water. "I can't quite believe it myself," I admitted. Andrew had been quiet for the past hour, but now he spoke up. "It's beautiful, Mom, but it's also isolated. Are you sure you'll be okay out here by yourself?" "I won't be by myself," I pointed out. "There are neighbors on both sides, and the town center is just a 10-minute walk." "But you don't know anyone here," he persisted. "I know Rachel," I countered, "and she's only an hour away." "An hour and 45 minutes, to be precise," Rachel corrected cheerfully. "But who's counting?" "Still," Andrew frowned, "what if something happens? What if you fall or get sick or—" "Andrew," I interrupted gently, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm not helpless. I'm 69, not 99. I can take care of myself." He didn't look convinced. "Sarah thinks—" "I'm sure she does," I cut him off, not wanting to hear what Sarah thought. "But this is my decision, my life." An uncomfortable silence fell over the group. Emma, ever the peacemaker, changed the subject. "So which room is going to be mine when I visit, Grandma?" I smiled at her gratefully. "The smaller bedroom at the end of the hall. It has a nice view of the side garden." "Can we go decorate it tomorrow before we leave?" she asked eagerly. "We need to get back to the city tomorrow, Emma," Andrew reminded her. "I have work on Monday, and you have classes." Emma's face fell. "Oh, right. But you can come next weekend," I suggested. "Bring some of your things then. Make it your own space." She brightened immediately. "Perfect. I'll bring my spare laptop and some clothes to leave here. Maybe that blue comforter Mom hates." We all laughed, and the tension eased. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deck, I felt a contentment that had been absent from my life for too long. Later, after Andrew and Emma had gone to a nearby hotel for the night, despite my insistence that they could sleep on air mattresses in the living room, Rachel helped me make up my bed with fresh sheets. "So," she said as we tucked in the corners, "how does it feel? Day one of your new life?" I sat on the edge of the newly made bed, considering. "Terrifying," I admitted. "Exhilarating. Overwhelming. Take your pick." Rachel sat beside me. "All of the above is a perfectly acceptable answer. I keep wondering if I've made a terrible mistake," I confessed. "If I'm being selfish and impulsive." "Laura Collins," Rachel said firmly, taking my hands in hers. "You have spent your entire adult life putting everyone else first. Your husband, your son, your daughter-in-law, God help you. You've earned the right to be a little selfish, to choose yourself for once." "Have I, though?" I wasn't convinced. "What kind of mother leaves her family?" "The kind whose family told her to pack her bags," Rachel reminded me bluntly. "The kind whose son and daughter-in-law treated her like an unpaid housekeeper. The kind who deserves respect and didn't get it." I sighed, feeling the weight of the past few days. I just hope I haven't damaged my relationship with Andrew beyond repair. "Give him time. Rachel advised. He's shocked right now. His reliable, predictable mother just did something completely unexpected. It's going to take a while for him to adjust. And if he doesn't? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. Rachel squeezed my hands. He will. He loves you. He's just forgotten how to show it without taking advantage. This is your chance to rebuild your relationship on healthier terms. I nodded, hoping she was right. We finished making the bed in comfortable silence. Then Rachel helped me unpack enough essentials to get through the next few days before hugging me goodbye. I'll come check on you midweek, she promised at the door. Call me every day until then. I will, I assured her. And Rachel, thank you for everything. After she left, I stood alone in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and unfamiliar shadows. The sound of waves drifted through the partially open windows, a rhythmic shushing that was both foreign and soothing. Well, Laura, I said aloud to the empty room, this is it, your new life. For the first time in over 40 years, I was truly alone. No husband breathing quietly beside me in bed. No son down the hall. No one to check on, cook for, clean up after. Just me and the sound of the ocean. I made myself a cup of tea and carried it out to the deck. The night was cool but not cold, the sky clear and sprinkled with stars that were never visible in the city. I sat in one of the folding chairs, wrapped a throw blanket around my shoulders, and just listened to the waves. It was different from the silence of the old house. This wasn't the heavy silence of absence. Robert's absence. Andrew's before he moved back. The absence of the busy family life we once had. This was a living silence, filled with the sound of water meeting shore, of wind in the trees beside the house, of distant wind chimes from a neighbor's porch. I slept surprisingly well that first night, lulled by the rhythm of the waves. But morning brought the reality of my new situation into sharp focus. Simple tasks suddenly seemed complicated in unfamiliar surroundings. The shower's temperature control was different from my old one, resulting in an initially freezing spray that made me yelp. I couldn't remember which box contained my coffee maker. The breaker tripped when I tried to use the toaster and electric kettle simultaneously. By 10 a.m., when Andrew and Emma arrived to help with more unpacking, I was feeling considerably less confident about my decision. "Everything okay, Mom?" Andrew asked, noticing my frazzled appearance. "Fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just trying to figure out where everything is." Emma, perceptive as always, gave me a quick hug. "It's weird at first, isn't it? Like when I moved into my dorm, nothing is where it's supposed to be." "Exactly," I agreed, grateful for her understanding. We spent the morning unpacking kitchen boxes and arranging furniture. By noon, the place was beginning to feel less chaotic. We ate sandwiches on the deck, and I could see Andrew taking in the view, perhaps finally understanding why this place had called to me. "I still think you're crazy," he said finally. "But I get it. This view? It's something special." "It is," I agreed. "And it's mine. Every morning and every evening. Just promise you'll call if you need anything," he said. "Even just to talk." "I promise," I said, touched by his concern despite everything. When they left an hour later, I felt the weight of solitude settle over me again. But this time, it felt less like isolation and more like freedom. I spent the rest of the day continuing to unpack, placing books on shelves, hanging clothes in closets, finding homes for the precious items I had chosen to bring with me. That evening, as I was struggling to hang curtains in the living room, standing precariously on a chair because I had no stepladder, a knock came at my door. Carefully climbing down, I went to answer it, wondering who could be visiting. A woman about my age stood on the porch holding a casserole dish. She had silver gray hair cut in a practical bob, warm brown eyes, and an approachable smile. "Hi there," she said cheerfully. I'm Marilyn Cooper. I live next door. She gestured to the house to the right of mine. I saw the moving trucks yesterday and thought I'd come welcome you to the neighborhood. That's very kind, I said, genuinely touched. I'm Laura Collins. Well, Laura Collins, I brought you a chicken and rice casserole, she said, holding out the dish. Moving is hungry work, and I figured you might not have your kitchen fully functional yet. You figured correctly, I admitted with a laugh. I can't even find my coffee maker. Then you'll have to come over for coffee tomorrow morning, Marilyn said decisively. 8 a.m. sharp. I'm an early riser. Former teacher, old habits die hard. I'd like that, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. Excellent, she nodded, pleased. And fair warning, you'll probably meet half the neighborhood within your first week. We're a friendly bunch, especially to new faces. Not many people move here mid-year. I'm not exactly a typical new resident, I acknowledged. Marilyn's eyes twinkled. Oh, honey, around here there's no such thing as typical. We've all got our stories. She glanced past me at the half-hung curtains. Need a hand with those? I'm pretty handy with a curtain rod. Before I could politely decline, she had bustled past me into the living room, set the casserole on a nearby box, and was examining my curtain situation. Within 15 minutes, she had helped me hang not only the living room curtains, but also those in my bedroom, producing a small toolbox from her oversized purse. Never leave home without it. And efficiently solving problems I'd been struggling with for hours. There, she said with satisfaction as we admired the living room curtains, now hanging perfectly straight. Much better. Thank you, I said, feeling slightly overwhelmed by her efficient helpfulness. You didn't have to do that. Neighbors help neighbors, she said simply. That's how we do things around here. You'll see. After she left, with a final reminder about coffee the next morning, I sat on my couch, still slightly bewildered by the whirlwind that was Marilyn Cooper. But I also felt something else, a small spark of hope. Perhaps I wouldn't be as isolated here as Andrew feared. That hope was reinforced the next morning when I arrived at Marilyn's house at 8 a.m. sharp. Her home was similar to mine in layout, but filled with colorful artwork, comfortable furniture, and hundreds of books. She greeted me in a bright turquoise caftan, her silver hair still damp from a shower. Right on time, she approved, ushering me onto a screened porch that faced the ocean. I like punctual people. The porch was set for breakfast, coffee, fresh fruit, yogurt, and homemade muffins. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, I protested. Nonsense, Marilyn waved away my concerns. I do this every morning. The only difference is usually I eat alone. We settled into comfortable chairs, coffee mugs in hand, and Marilyn got straight to the point. So, Laura Collins, what brings you to our little slice of paradise? Retirement? Divorce? Running from the law? She winked at the last suggestion. I laughed despite myself. None of the above, actually. I'm a widow, have been for 5 years. I just needed a change. Marilyn studied me over her coffee cup. There's more to that story, but we've got time. You don't have to tell me everything on day one. I appreciated her directness combined with respect for my privacy. What about you? I asked. How long have you lived here? 5 years, she said. Moved here after I retired from teaching. 40 years in a classroom was enough, thank you very much. Needed some peace and quiet. Do you have family nearby? I asked. Something flickered across her face, a momentary shadow. A daughter in Charleston. We're not close. My fault, probably. I was always too busy with other people's children to pay enough attention to my own. She shrugged, the gesture a little too casual. What about you? Family? A son in the city, Andrew, and a granddaughter, Emma, who's in college. They help you move in yesterday? The young man and the girl I saw? I nodded. They did. But they're not thrilled about your move, Marilyn guessed shrewdly. I sighed. Is it that obvious? Let's just say I recognize the look of someone who's doing something brave that their family doesn't understand. Marilyn smiled knowingly. It's the same look I had 5 years ago. We talked for nearly 2 hours, the conversation flowing easily between us. Marilyn told me about the community, the best places to shop, which restaurants were worth trying, the informal group of women who walked on the beach every morning at 7 a.m. You should join us, she suggested. Best way to start the day, and you'll meet everyone worth knowing in town. I might do that, I said, surprised by how appealing the idea was. Once I'm a bit more settled. By the time I left, we had exchanged phone numbers and Marilyn had invited me to a book club meeting the following week. No pressure to actually read the book, she assured me. Half of us never do. It's mostly an excuse to drink wine and gossip. Walking back to my house, I felt lighter than I had in days. Maybe, just maybe, this new life wouldn't be as difficult as I had feared. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Andrew. Hey, Mom, he said, his voice oddly formal. Just checking to see how you're doing. I'm fine, I assured him. Still unpacking, but making progress. Good, he said, then hesitated. Listen, there's a small issue at the house. My heart sank. What kind of issue? Nothing serious, he said quickly. Just, the dishwasher isn't working right. Sarah tried to run it last night, and it made this weird noise. Oh, I said, relieved it wasn't something major. It does that sometimes. You need to clear the filter at the bottom. I usually do it once a week. The filter? Yes. It gets clogged with food particles. There's a small panel at the bottom inside the dishwasher. You just unscrew it, clean it out, and put it back. There was a long pause. Sarah wants to know if you could come show us. Maybe this weekend? And there it was. Not even a full week. And already they wanted me back. Not because they missed me, but because they needed me to fix something. I'm sorry, Andrew, but I can't this weekend. I have plans. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did have plans to continue settling into my new home. Plans? He sounded surprised, as if he couldn't imagine what plans I could possibly have. What kind of plans? I'm meeting some neighbors, I said, thinking of Marilyn and the book club she had mentioned. And Emma is coming to visit, remember? Oh, right. Another pause. Well, maybe you could just tell me how to fix it over the phone? I sighed internally. I just did, Andrew. Clean the filter at the bottom of the dishwasher. But where exactly is the filter? And do I need tools to remove it? For the next 10 minutes, I patiently explained the simple maintenance task I had been doing for years without complaint or recognition. When we finally hung up, I sat on my deck, looking at the ocean and feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. They were already floundering without me. Part of me, a small petty part I wasn't proud of, was pleased. Let them see how much I had done for them, how many little things I had taken care of that they had never even noticed. But the larger part of me was simply sad. Sad that my own son hadn't learned basic household maintenance. Sad that he and Sarah were so dependent on me for things they should have been able to handle themselves. Sad that my value to them seemed tied to my usefulness rather than my personhood. The phone rang again an hour later. This time it was Sarah. I considered not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Sarah, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Laura, she said, her voice tight with what sounded like forced politeness. How are you settling in? Very well, thank you, I replied. The place is coming together nicely. That's good. A pause. Listen, I'm calling because we're having some issues with the house. Andrew tried to fix the dishwasher, but now it's leaking. And the washing machine is making a strange noise. And we can't find any of the important documents, insurance papers, warranties for the appliances, that sort of thing. I closed my eyes, counting silently to 10. The important papers are in the filing cabinet in the den, second drawer from the top. The washing machine always makes that noise on the spin cycle. It's normal. As for the dishwasher, if Andrew followed my instructions, it shouldn't be leaking. What exactly did he do? Sarah's voice grew defensive. I don't know the details. He tried to clean the filter like you said, but there was water everywhere afterward. I sighed. He probably didn't seat the filter cover properly. It needs to be screwed in tightly or it will leak. Well, we need you to come fix it, Sarah said, her tone now demanding. And show us where everything is. This is ridiculous, Laura. You can't just leave and expect us to figure everything out on our own. I felt a flash of anger. Actually, Sarah, that's exactly what I expect. You and Andrew are adults. You're living in the house now. These are basic household responsibilities that millions of people manage every day. But you've always taken care of these things, she protested. Yes, I agreed. I have. And now it's time for you and Andrew to take care of them. So you're just abandoning us? The accusation in her voice was unmistakable. I'm not abandoning anyone, Sarah. I'm 2 hours away, not on another planet. I'm happy to answer questions over the phone, but I'm not driving back to fix a dishwasher that Andrew can learn to fix himself with a simple YouTube tutorial. There was a long, tense silence. Then Sarah said coldly, I see. Well, don't be surprised if Andrew is hurt by your attitude. This is a significant change for all of us. Yes, I agreed. It is. Change is often uncomfortable, but it can also be necessary. After we hung up, I sat on my deck for a long time, watching the waves and thinking about boundaries, how hard they were to establish, how vital they were to maintain. I had spent years without them, letting Andrew and Sarah make demands on my time, my energy, my home. That was changing now, and it was painful for all of us, but necessary. So necessary. The rest of the week passed in a blur of unpacking, exploring my new neighborhood, and meeting more of the local residents. True to Marilyn's prediction, I was introduced to no fewer than a dozen neighbors, all of whom welcomed me warmly, and most of whom invited me to various activities: a community garden club, a senior center yoga class, a Sunday potluck at the local church. On Thursday morning, I took Marilyn up on her invitation and joined the beach walking group. 6 women ranging in age from early 60s to late 70s met at the public beach access at 7 a.m. sharp. Marilyn made the introductions, and we set off along the shore, the rising sun casting long shadows behind us. So, Laura, said Diane, a tall, athletic woman with short gray hair, Marilyn tells us you've made a bold move. Left the city to start fresh. That's one way of putting it, I acknowledged with a smile. Good for you, said Eleanor, the oldest of the group at 78. My only regret in life is not making changes sooner. Spent 30 years in a marriage that died after the first 10, but I was too afraid to leave. It's never too late, added Grace, a petite woman with a southern accent. I divorced my husband at 70. Best decision I ever made. I looked around at these women, strong, independent, unafraid to speak their minds, and felt something inside me ease. Here, at least, my decision wasn't seen as selfish or impulsive. It was recognized for what it was, an act of courage and self-respect. We walked for an hour, talking about everything from local politics to book recommendations to the best place to get a decent haircut in town. By the time we finished, I felt like I had known these women for years rather than hours. Same time tomorrow? Diane asked as we prepared to go our separate ways. I'll be here, I promised. Walking home, sand between my toes and the taste of salt on my lips, I felt more alive than I had in years. This, I thought, is what freedom feels like. Emma arrived on Friday evening as promised, her small car packed with clothes, books, and the blue comforter Sarah apparently despised. She burst into the house with her usual energy, hugging me tightly before spinning around to take in the changes I'd made over the past week. "Grandma, it looks amazing," she exclaimed. "So different from last weekend." It was true. With Marilyn's help and her extensive tool collection, I had hung pictures, arranged furniture, and created a space that already felt more like me than my old house had in years. "Wait until you see your room," I told her. "I found some curtains in town that I think you'll love." Emma's eyes widened in delight when she saw the small bedroom I had prepared for her. The walls were still the original pale blue, but I had added white curtains with tiny embroidered stars, a reading lamp beside the bed, and a small desk under the window. "It's perfect," she breathed, dropping her bags on the floor. "My own space by the ocean." "You can change anything you don't like," I assured her. "I wouldn't change a thing," she said, hugging me again. "Except maybe add some photos and fairy lights. A girl needs fairy lights." We spent the evening catching up. Emma told me about her classes, her friends, her part-time job at the campus bookstore. I told her about Marilyn and the beach walking group and the book club I would be attending next week. "You've made friends already," Emma said, sounding impressed. "Dad was worried you'd be lonely." "Your father worries too much," I said lightly. "I'm doing just fine." Emma hesitated, then said, "Things are weird at the house. Dad and Mom are arguing a lot. About the dishwasher, of all things, and other stuff. House stuff." "They'll figure it out," I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "Mom moved all her clothes into your closet the day after you left," Emma continued, watching me carefully. "And she took down all the family photos in your room and put up her own art prints. The ones with the weird geometric shapes that look like a kindergartner could have drawn them." I felt a twinge of pain at this, sharper than I had expected. It was just a room, just a closet. I had left them behind deliberately, and yet the speed with which Sarah had erased my presence stung. "That was quick," I managed to say. Emma's eyes were sympathetic. I told her it was disrespectful. She said she was making the space her own, whatever that means. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the hurt. "It's fine, Emma. Really. I have a new space now. A better one." I gestured to the living room, to the view of the ocean visible through the large windows. "And it's all mine." She smiled, but her eyes remained troubled. "There's something else, Grandma. I probably shouldn't tell you, but I think you should know." "What is it?" I asked, my stomach tightening with apprehension. "I heard Mom on the phone with her sister. She was talking about selling the house." Emma bit her lip. "She said now that you were gone, they could upgrade to something more suitable." That's the phrase she used. I sat down heavily on the couch, the wind knocked out of me. "Selling the house? My house?" "Your house that you signed over to them," Emma reminded me gently. Of course. In my determination to make a clean break, I had given Andrew and Sarah full ownership of the house. They were free to do whatever they wanted with it, including sell it. "I see," I said finally. "Well, that's their decision now." Emma sat beside me, taking my hand in hers. "Are you okay? I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have told you." "No, I'm glad you did," I assured her, squeezing her hand. "It's just unexpected. I didn't think they'd want to leave so soon." "I don't think Dad knows yet," Emma confided. "It sounded like Mom was just floating the idea to her sister, testing the waters." I nodded, trying to process this new information. The house where I had lived for 40 years, where I had raised my son, where I had made a lifetime of memories, might soon belong to strangers. The thought was more painful than I had anticipated. But then again, I reminded myself, I had already said goodbye to that house. I had already made my peace with leaving it behind. This was just one more step in the process of letting go. "It doesn't matter," I said finally, as much to convince myself as Emma. "What matters is that we're here now, together, in this new place that's going to hold new memories." Emma studied me, her eyes so like her father's, so like Robert's. "You're really okay, aren't you, Grandma? Here, I mean. On your own." I smiled at my perceptive granddaughter. "I am. More than okay. I'm happy, Emma. Truly happy for the first time in a long time." And as I said the words, I realized they were true. Despite the challenges, despite the hurt, despite the uncertainty, I was happier here in my small beach house than I had been in years. Here I wasn't someone's mother or grandmother or mother-in-law first. I was just Laura, and that was enough. "Good," Emma said firmly. "You deserve to be happy, Grandma, no matter what Dad or Mom or anyone else thinks." We spent the weekend exploring the town together, walking on the beach, cooking meals in my new kitchen. Emma helped me hang more pictures, arrange my books, and set up the small office nook I had created in one corner of the living room. On Saturday night, Marilyn came over for dinner, bringing a bottle of wine and her infectious energy. She and Emma hit it off immediately, bonding over a shared love of classic movies and obscure indie bands I had never heard of. "Your granddaughter is delightful," Marilyn told me as Emma washed dishes in the kitchen, insisting on cleaning up since we had cooked. "Smart, funny, and she clearly adores you." "The feeling is mutual," I assured her. "You're lucky," Marilyn said, a hint of wistfulness in her voice, "to have that relationship. Not all of us get so fortunate." I thought of her earlier mention of her distant daughter and felt a surge of gratitude for Emma, for the bond we shared. "Yes," I agreed. "I am very lucky." When Emma left on Sunday afternoon, she hugged me for a long time on the front porch. "I'll be back next weekend," she promised. "Maybe I'll bring a friend, if that's okay." "Of course it is," I told her. "This is your home too, Emma. Always." As I watched her drive away, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Love, pride, a touch of loneliness, but overwhelming gratitude. Whatever else had happened, whatever bridges had been damaged with Andrew and Sarah, my relationship with Emma remained strong. Perhaps even stronger now that we had this special place that was just ours. That night, as I sat on my deck watching the stars come out over the ocean, my phone rang. It was Andrew. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice sounding tired. "Just checking in. Emma get home okay?" "Yes, she texted me when she arrived. She said you weren't home yet." "No, I'm working late. There's a project deadline tomorrow." He paused. "She seemed happy when she got back. Said you two had a good weekend." "We did," I confirmed. "Your daughter is a remarkable young woman, Andrew. You should be very proud." "I am," he said softly. "One thing I did right, I guess." There was something in his tone, a vulnerability, a sadness, that tugged at my heart. "You've done many things right, Andrew. Being a good father is just one of them." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mom, I think I owe you an apology. A real one, not just the half-hearted ones I gave before you left." "Oh?" I tried to keep my tone neutral, not wanting to interrupt whatever he was working toward. "I've been thinking a lot this past week, about how we treated you, about what I said at dinner that night." He took a deep breath. "It was unforgivable. The way I spoke to you, the way I've been taking you for granted. I'm sorry, Mom. Really, truly sorry." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you for saying that, Andrew. It means a lot." "I don't expect you to come back," he continued. "I understand why you left. I hope we can fix this. Our relationship, I mean. I don't want to lose my mom just because I was a thoughtless jerk. You haven't lost me, I assured him. I'm right here, just a phone call away, and you're welcome to visit any time. Maybe next weekend, he suggested. If that's okay, I'd like to see your place when it's all set up. Maybe bring some dinner. I'd like that, I said, surprised by how much I meant it. After we hung up, I sat for a long time listening to the waves and thinking about second chances, about healing, about the long, complicated journey of family relationships. Perhaps this separation was what we had needed, what Andrew had needed, to recognize what was in danger of being lost. Only time would tell. But for now, under the vast, star-filled sky, with the sound of the ocean as a constant reminder of life's ebb and flow, I allowed myself to hope. 1 month had passed since I moved into my beach house, and life had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Each morning began with a walk along the shore with Marilyn and the other women. Afternoons were for exploring the town, volunteering at the local library, or simply sitting on my deck with a book. Evenings brought stunning sunsets that I never tired of watching. Emma had visited every weekend, sometimes bringing college friends, sometimes coming alone. She had indeed decorated her room with fairy lights, photos, and personal touches that made it uniquely hers. On her last visit, she'd casually mentioned leaving some textbooks on the desk for next semester, a small gesture that filled me with joy. She was putting down roots in my new home. Andrew had called regularly, our conversations growing less awkward with each passing week. He had visited twice, without Sarah, bringing takeout and staying for a few hours each time. There was still tension, still unspoken words between us, but we were finding our way back to each other, step by small step. I hadn't heard directly from Sarah since that phone call about the dishwasher, though Emma kept me updated on the situation at the house. According to my granddaughter, Sarah had been mysteriously looking at real estate websites and dropping hints about neighborhoods with better schools, despite the fact that she and Andrew had no children yet. It was a crisp Saturday morning in October when my phone rang. I was on the deck, coffee in hand, watching the early sun sparkle on the waves. "Hi, Grandma," Emma's cheerful voice came through. "Guess what? I convinced Dad to bring me for the whole weekend. We're leaving in an hour." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, genuinely pleased. "I'll make up your room." "Actually," Emma hesitated, "Dad wants to stay too. Is that okay? He can take the couch." I paused, surprised. Andrew hadn't stayed overnight in any of his previous visits. "Of course it's okay. I'd love to have both of you." "Great. Oh, and there's one more thing." Another hesitation. I kind of invited him without telling him one small detail. I sighed, knowing my granddaughter's penchant for well-intentioned meddling. "What detail, Emma?" "I may have mentioned that there's a nice little festival in town this weekend, and that we should all go. Together. The three of us." "That sounds lovely," I said, still not understanding her nervousness. And I may have also told him that I invited Mom, and she's coming, separately, meeting us there. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "You invited Sarah to come here to my town?" I know," Emma rushed to say. "But Grandma, it's been a month, and you two haven't spoken at all, and it's so awkward when I talk about visiting you, and I just thought if you saw each other on neutral ground, maybe—" "Emma," I interrupted. "Sweetheart, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but forcing Sarah and me together at a public event might not be the best idea." "It won't be forced," Emma insisted. She actually said yes right away. "I think she wants to fix things too, Grandma. She's been different lately. Quieter, less bossy. Even Dad says so." I sighed, looking out at the ocean. The peaceful day I had planned, a book club meeting followed by dinner with Marilyn, was rapidly transforming into something far more complicated. "Please, Grandma." Emma's voice was soft, pleading. "Just give it a chance." How could I refuse her when she had such good intentions? "All right," I conceded. "But don't expect miracles, okay? Sarah and I have history." "I know," Emma said. "I just want my family to be a family again, even if it's a different kind of family than before." After we hung up, I sat for a long time, watching the waves and thinking about family, what it meant, how it changed, how it could break and mend and transform. Emma was right. It had been a month. Perhaps it was time to at least attempt civility with Sarah, for Emma's sake, if not my own. I called Marilyn to reschedule our dinner, then spent the morning preparing the house for guests. I changed the sheets on Emma's bed, cleared my few belongings from the small second bathroom, and rearranged the living room to make the couch more accommodating as a bed. I baked cookies, chocolate chip, Andrew's favorite since childhood, and made a shopping list for the weekend. They arrived just after noon, Andrew's car pulling into my driveway as I was returning from the market with grocery bags. Emma bounded out first, rushing to hug me despite my full hands. "Grandma, the house looks even better than last weekend." Andrew approached more slowly, carrying their overnight bags. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, but he managed a genuine smile. "Hey, Mom, need a hand with those groceries?" We settled in quickly, Emma chattering about her classes as she helped me put away groceries, Andrew carrying bags to their respective rooms. There was an ease between us that had been missing in his previous visits, as if the overnight stay had somehow changed the dynamic from a formal visit to something more familial. After a light lunch, we walked along the shore, Emma collecting shells and taking photos, Andrew and I strolling side by side in comfortable silence. The tension I had anticipated about tomorrow's meeting with Sarah remained unspoken between us, though I caught Andrew watching me with a thoughtful expression several times. That evening, as Emma showered, Andrew finally broached the subject as we sat on the deck, watching the sunset. "I should apologize for Emma's arrangement," he said, looking uncomfortable. "She didn't tell me she'd invited Sarah until after Sarah had already agreed to come." "It's okay," I assured him. "Emma means well." "She misses how things used to be," Andrew said, "or how she thinks they used to be anyway." I turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Andrew sighed, running a hand through his hair, that gesture so like his father's. "Sarah and I, things haven't been great, Mom, even before you left. I think Emma sees this rift between you and Sarah as the problem, but it's just a symptom." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I wanted my son to be happy. "It's not your fault," he said quickly. "If anything, your leaving forced us to look at some issues we'd been ignoring, like the fact that Sarah and I want very different things." "Such as?" Andrew gazed out at the darkening ocean. "I was happy in the house. Our house. Your house. It was home. Sarah's been pushing to sell it, move to a bigger place in a different neighborhood." "Emma mentioned something about that," I admitted. "Of course she did," Andrew said with a wry smile. "Nothing gets past Emma." He paused. "Sarah's sister just bought this massive place in Brookdale. You know, that gated community on the north side? Ever since, Sarah's been obsessed with upgrading. Says the house is dated and doesn't reflect our status." I thought of the home I'd lovingly maintained for 40 years, the kitchen Robert and I had renovated ourselves, the garden I'd tended each spring. "It is an older home," I acknowledged, "but it has character." "It has memories," Andrew corrected. "It has history. Our history." He looked at me directly. "I never wanted you to leave, Mom. Not really. I was just caught in the middle, between what Sarah wanted and what I knew was right. The admission hung in the air between us, honest and painful. "Why didn't you stand up for me?" I asked softly, the question I'd been holding inside for weeks. Andrew looked down at his hands. "Because I'm a coward," he said simply. "Because it was easier to go along with Sarah than to fight. Because I'd been doing that for so long I forgot how to do anything else." His raw honesty took my breath away. This was the son I remembered, the thoughtful, introspective boy who had grown into a man capable of self-reflection. He had been buried for so long under layers of Sarah's influence that I'd nearly forgotten he existed. "You're not a coward, Andrew," I said gently. "You just lost your way for a while." He gave me a sad smile. "I lost more than that, Mom. I nearly lost you." The moment was interrupted by Emma bounding onto the deck, hair wet from her shower, phone in hand. "Dad, Grandma, look at this sunset pic I just posted. It's already got 50 likes. Andrew and I exchanged a glance that said our conversation would continue later, then turned our attention to Emma's phone and the undeniably beautiful image she had captured. The next morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for the small craft festival the town was hosting on its main street. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as we prepared to leave, though whether from anticipation of the festival or nervousness about her parents' reunion, I couldn't tell. "Mom's meeting us by the big fountain at 11, she announced, checking her phone for the 20th time that morning. "She says she's already on her way." Andrew, who had been quiet over breakfast, simply nodded. I noticed he'd taken particular care with his appearance today. A pressed shirt, his better jeans, even a hint of cologne. It reminded me of how he used to dress for parent-teacher conferences, putting on a good front despite whatever might be happening behind the scenes. We walked to the festival since it was only a few blocks from my house. The main street had been transformed overnight, with white tents lining both sides, colorful banners strung between lampposts, and the enticing smells of festival food already filling the air. Local artists displayed paintings, jewelry, pottery, and handcrafted furniture. Musicians played at small intervals, creating pockets of melody throughout the crowd. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed browsing the stalls, perhaps picking out a new piece of pottery for my kitchen or a painting for the bare wall in my bedroom. But today my stomach was knotted with tension, my eyes constantly scanning the crowd for a glimpse of Sarah. Emma spotted her first. "There she is, by the fountain, just like she said. Mom!" She waved enthusiastically, drawing Sarah's attention. Sarah looked different somehow, less polished, more approachable. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans and a light sweater instead of her typical carefully coordinated outfit. She smiled when she saw Emma, the genuine warmth in her expression fading to uncertainty as her gaze moved to Andrew and me. Emma, oblivious to the attention or deliberately ignoring it, rushed forward to hug her mother. "You made it! Isn't this place amazing? Grandma lives like 5 minutes from here." "It's lovely," Sarah agreed, her eyes still on Andrew and me as we approached more slowly. "Very quaint." There was an awkward moment of silence as the four of us stood there, the festival swirling around us, none of us quite sure how to proceed. Emma, bless her heart, jumped into the breach. "So there's a really cool glassblower down that way, and a guy making wind chimes out of old silverware, and about 1,000,000 food trucks with stuff that smells amazing. Where should we start?" "Why don't you show your mom some of your favorite stalls?" I suggested, seeing an opportunity to give Andrew and Sarah a moment alone. "Your father and I will get some coffee and meet you at the town square in, say, half an hour?" "Perfect!" Emma seized on the plan, already tugging Sarah's arm. "Mom, you have to see this one artist who makes jewelry out of sea glass. I got Grandma a beautiful necklace last weekend." As they disappeared into the crowd, Sarah casting one unreadable glance back at Andrew, I turned to my son. "Coffee?" He nodded, looking relieved. "Thanks for that." he said as we made our way to a small coffee stand. I wasn't sure how to. Well, it's been awkward. I thought you two could use a few minutes, I said. Emma means well, but subtlety isn't her strong suit. Andrew chuckled. She gets that from Dad. Remember how he used to plan those surprise anniversaries for you that the whole neighborhood knew about 2 weeks in advance? The memory made me smile. He could never keep a secret. Once he bought me a necklace and was so excited about it that he gave it to me 3 days before my birthday because he couldn't wait. I miss him, Andrew said quietly. Sometimes I wonder what he would think of all this, of how I've handled things. I considered this as we collected our coffees and found a bench at the edge of the festival. Your father wasn't perfect, Andrew. None of us are. But he believed in doing the right thing, even when it was difficult. Especially when it was difficult. I haven't been doing the right thing for a long time, Andrew admitted. With Sarah, with you, with a lot of things. It's never too late to start, I reminded him. That's what my therapist says, he replied, then looked slightly embarrassed. I've been seeing someone, a counselor, for a few weeks now. This was news to me. I think that's wonderful, Andrew. Yeah, well, after you left, I did a lot of thinking about why I let things get to that point. Why I spoke to you that way. It wasn't right, and I knew it wasn't right, but I did it anyway. He stared into his coffee. The therapist thinks I have issues with standing up for myself, setting boundaries. Sound familiar? Like mother, like son, I said softly. Except you finally set a boundary. A big one. He looked up at me, something like admiration in his eyes. It took guts to do what you did, Mom. To walk away. To start over. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I confessed. Harder than when your father died, in some ways. Because that was something that happened to me. This was a choice I made. A choice you shouldn't have had to make, Andrew said firmly. If I had been a better son, if I had stood up to Sarah, if I had treated you with the respect you deserve. We can't change the past, I interrupted gently. We can only move forward. Andrew nodded, seeming to gather his courage. Speaking of moving forward, there's something I need to tell you about the house. My stomach tightened. Emma mentioned Sarah was looking at real estate listings. It's more than that, Andrew said. Sarah actually contacted a realtor, had the house appraised, started making plans to list it. Despite having suspected this, hearing it confirmed was like a physical blow. I see, I managed to say. And how do you feel about that? I told her no, Andrew said simply. I told her the house isn't for sale. Not now, not ever, as long as I have anything to say about it. I stared at him, stunned. You stood up to her? A small, proud smile crossed his face. I did. It wasn't pretty. There was a lot of yelling, some door slamming. She stayed at her sister's for 3 nights, but when she came back, something had changed. It was like she finally realized I wasn't going to back down on this, that I had lines I wouldn't let her cross anymore. Andrew, I said, deeply moved, I'm proud of you. Thanks, Mom, he replied, looking pleased but embarrassed. It's a start anyway. We still have a lot to work through. Sarah wants what she wants, and she's used to getting it. But I'm learning that what I want matters too. What I value matters. We sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, sipping our coffee and watching the festival-goers stroll past. Then Andrew asked, Are you happy here, Mom? Really happy? I thought about my morning beach walks, my new friends, my quiet evenings watching the sunset, the sense of peace I felt each night as I fell asleep to the sound of waves. Yes, I said with absolute certainty. I am. Good, he said, and I could tell he meant it. You deserve to be happy, after everything you've done for me, for Dad, for all of us. You deserve this time for yourself. We finished our coffees and made our way to the town square to meet Emma and Sarah. They were already there, Emma chattering animatedly about something while Sarah nodded, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. "Look what Mom bought me," Emma exclaimed as we approached, holding up a delicate bracelet. "It's made from sea glass, just like your necklace, Grandma. Now we match." "It's beautiful," I told her, genuinely admiring the pale blue and green pieces arranged in a simple silver setting. "Laura," Sarah said, addressing me directly for the first time that day, "your town is lovely. The shops, the people, it's very charming." "Thank you," I replied, slightly taken aback by the genuine compliment. "I've grown quite fond of it." An awkward silence fell, none of us quite sure where to go from here. Emma, our self-appointed social director, jumped in once again. "I'm starving. Can we get lunch? I saw an amazing seafood stand near the pier." We followed her lead, walking toward the pier where several food trucks were set up. Andrew and Emma pulled ahead, leaving Sarah and me walking side by side, a careful distance between us. "Your house looks nice," Sarah said after a moment. "Very." "Thank you," I said again, searching for something else to add. "How are things at the house?" I couldn't quite bring myself to call it her house, even though legally it now was. "Fine," she said shortly, then sighed. "Actually, that's not true. Nothing's fine. Everything's a mess, and it's my fault, and I don't know how to fix it." I glanced at her, surprised by the admission. "What do you mean?" Sarah stopped walking, turning to face me. "I've been terrible to you, Laura. Disrespectful, ungrateful, demanding. I treated your home like it was mine to command, your time like it was mine to claim." She looked down, then back up, meeting my eyes directly. "I'm sorry, truly sorry." Of all the things I had expected from today, a sincere apology from Sarah was not on the list. I was momentarily speechless. "You don't have to forgive me," she continued. "I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but I needed to say it. Andrew's been seeing a therapist, and it's made me realize some things about myself that aren't flattering." "We all have those realizations sometimes," I said carefully. "I've always been the one in control," Sarah said, seeming to choose her words with unusual care. "The one making decisions, setting the agenda. It's how I was raised. My mother was the same way. I never saw anything wrong with it until I left," I finished for her. "Until you left," she agreed. And suddenly, everything fell apart. The house was a disaster. Andrew was angry all the time. Emma barely spoke to me. And I realized that I'd been so focused on getting what I wanted that I'd damaged all these relationships beyond repair. "Not beyond repair," I said gently. "Damaged, yes, but not beyond repair." Sarah looked at me, hope and skepticism warring in her expression. "Even ours? After how I treated you?" I thought about it honestly. Could I forgive Sarah for the months of small humiliations, the thoughtless demands, the way she had tried to erase me from my own home? It wouldn't be easy, but I thought of Emma, of Andrew, of the family we all shared. "We can try," I offered. "For Andrew's sake, for Emma's. We don't have to be best friends, Sarah, but we can be civil, respectful." "I'd like that," she said quietly. "And I'd like, if it's okay with you, to see your beach house sometime. Properly, I mean. Not just passing by on the way to a festival." It was a small olive branch, but an unexpected one. "I'd like that too," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. We continued walking toward the pier, where Andrew and Emma were waiting, watching us with identical expressions of hopeful anxiety. As we approached, Emma's face broke into a relieved smile. "So, everything good?" she asked, looking between us. "Getting there," I told her, and Sarah nodded in agreement. The rest of the day passed with surprising ease. We explored the festival together, the four of us finding a rhythm that was new but not unpleasant. There were still moments of tension, still careful navigation around sensitive topics, but there was also laughter, shared meals, and the simple pleasure of being together without the weight of unresolved conflict pressing down quite so heavily. By the time we returned to my house that evening, something had shifted. A tentative peace had been established. Sarah, who had originally planned to drive back to the city that night, accepted my offer to stay for dinner. As I prepared a simple meal in my kitchen, I could hear the three of them on the deck, Emma's bright laughter, Andrew's deeper tones, even Sarah's voice joining in occasionally. They sounded like a family, different from before, changed by what we had all been through, but still a family. And I was still a part of it, just in a new way, on my own terms. 2 weeks after the festival, Andrew called with unexpected news. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Can I come down this weekend? Alone?" There was something in his voice, a tension, an urgency that concerned me. "Of course. Is everything all right?" "Yes." "No, I don't know," he admitted. "It's complicated. I'd rather discuss it in person." All week I wondered what could be so important. Was it about Sarah? Had their tentative reconciliation fallen apart? Was it about the house after all? By the time Saturday arrived, I had imagined a dozen scenarios, each more concerning than the last. Andrew arrived mid-morning, looking tired but determined. We settled on the deck with coffee, the October sunshine warm on our faces despite the crisp air. "So," I said after a few minutes of small talk, "what's this important matter you wanted to discuss?" Andrew took a deep breath. "I found something in the attic last weekend. I was looking for the Halloween decorations, and I came across a box I'd never seen before. It had Dad's handwriting on it. 'For Laura, when the time is right.'" My heart stuttered. "Robert's box? I don't remember any box like that." "It was hidden behind some old suitcases," Andrew explained. "I think he put it there deliberately. Mom, there were letters inside, dozens of them, and documents, financial records." "Financial records?" I repeated, confused. "What kind of financial records?" Andrew reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. "This will explain better than I can. It's from Dad to you, dated 3 weeks before he died." With trembling hands, I took the envelope. The handwriting on the front was unmistakably Robert's, my name in his distinctive cursive, the L looping in that way only he wrote it. I opened it carefully and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Laura," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you finally found the courage to start living for yourself again. I always knew this day would come, though I hoped I'd be here to see it." I read on, tears blurring my vision as Robert's voice seemed to speak directly to me from the page. He had known, somehow he had known, that I would eventually need to break free, to reclaim myself. He wrote of how he had watched me gradually subsume my own needs and desires to those of others, how he had admired my selflessness but worried about what it was costing me. "You were always stronger than you knew," he wrote, "strong enough to carry all of us, but too kind to put down the weight even when it was crushing you. I should have helped you more. I should have shouldered more of the burden. For that, I am sorry. But I can help you now, in the way I know best." The letter went on to explain that Robert had been secretly saving money for years, diverting a portion of his salary into a separate account that even I hadn't known about. An account in my name only, with specific instructions that it was not to be accessed until 5 years after his death. By then, he wrote, you will either have found your wings on your own, in which case this will give you the freedom to fly farther than you ever dreamed, or you will still be carrying everyone else's burdens, in which case this might give you the courage to finally set them down. The account, according to Robert's letter, contained over 300,000 dai, the result of 20 years of careful saving and investment. It is yours, he insisted in his final paragraph. Not Andrew's inheritance, not for Sarah's house renovations, not for Emma's college fund. Yours alone, for whatever you want, for whatever will make you happy. Because if anyone deserves happiness, my love, it is you. I lowered the letter, tears streaming down my face. Andrew was watching me, his expression a mixture of concern and something else. Respect, perhaps. Did you read this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. I did. And the financial documents, too. Mom, that money is real. I called the bank. The account exists, just like Dad said, and it's in your name only. I tried to process what this meant. Robert had known. He had seen me more clearly than I had seen myself. He had prepared for this moment, creating a safety net for me that I hadn't known I would need. There's something else, Andrew said, his voice gentle. Another letter in the box. This one was addressed to me. He pulled out a second envelope. Dad wrote it 3 days before he died. I think he knew the end was coming, even if we didn't. I watched as Andrew unfolded his own letter, noting how carefully he handled the paper, as if it were something precious. He told me to take care of you, Andrew said, his voice thick with emotion, to make sure you didn't lose yourself in taking care of everyone else. He made me promise to watch out for you, to make sure you had your own life, your own joy. He looked up, eyes wet. I failed him, Mom. I failed you both. Oh, Andrew, I said, reaching for his hand. You didn't know. How could you have known? I should have seen it, he insisted. I should have noticed how Sarah and I were treating you. Dad noticed it years ago. He saw where things were heading, and instead of protecting you like I promised, I became the very thing he was worried about, another burden for you to carry. We sat in silence for a long moment, both lost in our own thoughts, our own regrets. Finally, Andrew spoke again. I want to make it right, Mom. I don't know how exactly, but I want to try. I looked at my son, this man who had hurt me deeply, but who was now sitting before me, vulnerable and sincere in his desire to make amends. We're already making it right, I told him. By talking like this, by being honest with each other, by respecting each other's choices. Andrew nodded slowly. I want you to know that Sarah and I have decided to stay in the house. Your house. We're not selling it. It's your house now, I reminded him. It will always be your house in the ways that matter, he countered. And I want you to feel welcome there, anytime. I've cleared out Sarah's things from your old room. It's yours again, whenever you want to use it. For visits, for holidays, for whatever. This gesture, this acknowledgement of my place in the home I had loved for so long, meant more than Andrew could possibly know. Thank you, I said simply. And there's one more thing, Andrew continued, seeming to gather his courage. Sarah and I have decided to try counseling. Together. We've got issues to work through, but we're both committed to trying. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I wanted them to find their way back to the love they had once shared, if that was possible. So what will you do with the money? Andrew asked after another comfortable silence. Dad's money, I mean. I looked out at the ocean, considering. This unexpected gift from Robert changed things. I had been comfortable but careful with my savings. Now I had options I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. "I'm not sure," I admitted. "Travel, maybe. I've always wanted to see Europe. Robert and I talked about it, but we never got around to it." "You should do it," Andrew encouraged. "Dad would love that." "Maybe I will," I said, feeling a sense of possibility unfurl within me. "But first, I think I'll just enjoy knowing it's there, that I have choices, freedom." "Freedom looks good on you, Mom," Andrew said softly. "I've never seen you this peaceful, this happy." I smiled at him. This son who was finally seeing me, really seeing me, perhaps for the first time in his adult life. "It feels good," I told him honestly. "Better than I ever imagined." We spent the rest of the day talking, really talking, about Robert, about our shared grief that had never been fully expressed, about Andrew's childhood and my choices as a mother, about his relationship with Sarah and how it had changed both of us. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had, painful at times, but ultimately healing in ways I hadn't known we needed. As evening fell, we walked along the beach, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. Andrew picked up a piece of driftwood and tossed it into the waves, watching it bob and float away. "Mom," he said suddenly, "I'm sorry for everything, for taking you for granted, for not appreciating all you did, for that night at dinner when I—" He couldn't finish. "I know," I said, linking my arm through his. "I forgive you, Andrew. I really do." He looked down at me, this son who towered over me physically, but who had in some ways been looking up to me his entire life. "How can you, after what I did?" "Because you're my son," I said simply. "And because holding on to anger only hurts me in the end." "You're a better person than I am," he said, shaking his head. "No," I corrected him. "Just older, with a little more practice at the hard parts of life." As we turned to head back to the house, I felt something settle inside me, a piece of myself that had been jagged and painful for months, finally finding its proper place. Andrew and I had a long way to go. Our relationship had been damaged and healing would take time, but we had made a start, an honest start, and that was enough for now. 3 months after I moved to my beach house, winter had settled over the coast, bringing with it stormy seas and dramatic skies that I found unexpectedly beautiful. The summer tourists were long gone, leaving the town to its year-round residents. I had become one of them, recognized at the local coffee shop, greeted by name at the market, included in community events without question. My beach walking group continued through the winter, bundled against the cold, finding beauty in the gray skies and wild waters that were so different from the calm summer seas. Marilyn had become my closest friend in town, dropping by unannounced with books to recommend or neighborhood gossip to share. "So," she said one morning as we walked along the nearly empty beach, "Andrew's coming for Christmas?" "Yes," I confirmed. "He and Sarah, and Emma, of course. She's bringing a friend from college who can't go home for the holidays." Marilyn gave me a sidelong glance. "Sarah too, huh? That's progress." "It is," I agreed. "Things are better. Not perfect, but better." The relationship between Sarah and me had evolved slowly but steadily since the festival in October. We would never be best friends, but we had found a way to be family. The kind of family that could share a holiday meal without tension, that could discuss Emma's future without disagreement, that could acknowledge past hurts without reopening old wounds. "And how are you feeling about hosting Christmas in your new place?" Marilyn asked. "Nervous? Excited? Ready to flee the country?" I laughed. "A little of all three, to be honest, but mostly excited. This will be the first Christmas that's truly mine. My home, my rules, my traditions. Well, our new traditions. Such as? Well, for starters, no formal dinner. We're doing a beach bonfire on Christmas Eve, weather permitting. Casual clothes all day Christmas. Presents in the morning, but only one each. We're focusing on experiences over things this year. Sounds perfect, Marilyn approved. And very you. That's the idea, I said. To make this holiday reflect who I am now, not who I was expected to be for all those years. The week before Christmas, I prepared my small house for guests with a sense of joyful anticipation rather than the anxious pressure I had felt in previous years. I hung simple decorations, pine branches collected from my walks, white lights strung along the deck railing, a small tree adorned with ornaments Emma and I had chosen together. I arranged the spare bedroom for Emma and her friend, set up a comfortable air mattress in my office nook for Andrew, and made sure the pull-out couch in the living room was ready for Sarah. The house would be full to bursting, but in the best possible way. They arrived on December 23rd, Andrew and Sarah in one car, Emma and her friend Jasmine in another. The hours that followed were a cheerful chaos of suitcases, introductions, exclamations over the view, and the inevitable rearrangement of sleeping quarters. Sarah insisted the pull-out couch was fine, though I offered to give her my room. That evening, as planned, we bundled up against the winter chill and headed to the beach, where Andrew and Emma built a bonfire in one of the designated fire pits. We roasted hot dogs and marshmallows like children, laughing as the wind occasionally blew smoke in our faces, huddling closer to the flames as the temperature dropped. "This," Emma declared, her face glowing in the firelight, "is officially my new favorite Christmas tradition." "Better than Grandma's formal dinner with the good china?" Andrew teased. "Way better," Emma confirmed. "No offense, Grandma." "None taken," I assured her. "I like this better, too." Later, back at the house, as everyone else played a board game in the living room, Sarah joined me in the kitchen where I was preparing hot chocolate. "Need a hand?" she offered. "Sure," I said, handing her mugs to fill. "The whipped cream is in the fridge." We worked in companionable silence for a moment. Then Sarah said, "I want to thank you, Laura, for including me this Christmas. After everything, well, I wouldn't have blamed you if you hadn't." "Your family," I said simply. "That hasn't changed." Sarah nodded, focusing intently on the mug she was filling. "I've been seeing someone, a therapist, I mean, like Andrew. It's been eye-opening." "In what way?" I asked, genuinely curious. She hesitated, then said, "I've always defined myself by what I have. The right job, the right house, the right husband, the right everything. It's how I was raised. Your value is in what you possess, what you achieve." She looked up at me. "But you left it all behind. The house, the role, everything. And you seem happier than I've ever seen you." "I am," I confirmed. "It made me realize that maybe I've been chasing the wrong things," Sarah continued. "That maybe there's more to life than having the biggest house on the block or the most impressive job title." "There is," I said gently. "But that's something each person has to discover for themselves." "I'm trying," she said with a small smile. "It's not easy, old habits and all that." "The worthwhile things rarely are easy," I told her, "but they're worth the effort." The next morning, Christmas Day, we gathered around my small tree in pajamas and slippers, mugs of coffee in hand, to exchange our one gift each. The new tradition had been Emma's idea, inspired by a friend whose family had adopted a similar approach years ago. "One meaningful gift is better than a dozen random ones," she had insisted. Andrew went first, presenting me with a small wrapped package. Inside was a beautiful compass, its brass case engraved with the coordinates of my beach house. So you'll always find your way home, he explained, no matter how far you travel. Emma gave her father a leather-bound journal filled with photos and memories she had collected over the years. So you remember what really matters, she told him, when work gets crazy. Sarah, to everyone's surprise, had made gifts rather than bought them, hand-knitted scarves for each of us, in colors she had carefully chosen to match our preferences. I've been taking classes, she admitted when we expressed our admiration, trying to create instead of just consume. My gift to Andrew was a small wooden box containing the spare key to my beach house. So you always know you're welcome, I told him. All of you, I added, including Sarah and Emma in my glance. On and on it went, each gift thoughtfully chosen or created, each representing not just the giver's understanding of the recipient, but also something meaningful about our relationships with each other. The last gift was mine, from Emma. She handed me a flat, square package with a nervous smile. I hope you like it, she said. I unwrapped it carefully to find a framed photograph. Not a new one, but one taken years ago, when Emma was about 10. In it, she and I were on the beach building a sandcastle together, both of us laughing at something now forgotten. I remembered the day, a rare family vacation when Andrew and Sarah had actually relaxed enough to enjoy themselves. But what made the photo special wasn't just the memory it captured, but what Emma had done with it. Around the image, in her artistic handwriting, she had written dozens of words. Strong, brave, wise, loving, independent, inspiring, teacher, friend, mother, grandmother. It's all the things you are, Emma explained softly. All the things I see when I look at you. All the things I hope to be someday. I couldn't speak, my throat too tight with emotion. Instead, I pulled her into a fierce hug, holding her close as tears spilled down my cheeks. I love you, Grandma, she whispered. I'm so proud of you for choosing yourself, for showing me it's never too late to start over. Later that day, as we all walked along the winter beach, bundled against the cold but warmed by the love we shared, I thought about the journey of the past few months. From that fateful dinner when Andrew had demanded my room, to this moment of peace and genuine connection. It hadn't been an easy road. There had been pain, tears, difficult conversations, tentative reconciliations. But here we were, a family transformed. Andrew walking ahead with Emma and Jasmine, pointing out seabirds. Sarah beside me, comfortable in the silence between us. And me, Laura Collins, 69 years old, finally living the life I had chosen for myself. As if reading my thoughts, Sarah said, You made the right choice, Laura. Leaving, starting over, standing up for yourself. I know, I said simply. I'm trying to learn from your example, she continued, to figure out what I really want, not just what I think I should want. And have you? Figured it out, I mean? Sarah gazed out at the winter sea. I'm getting there, slowly. She glanced at me. Any wisdom to share? For someone just starting the journey? I considered this seriously. Be patient with yourself, I said finally. Change takes time, and remember that it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. She nodded thoughtfully. I'll try to remember that. Ahead of us, Emma turned, waving for us to catch up. Come on, slowpokes, she called. Andrew says there's a great coffee shop just up the beach that's open today. Sarah and I quickened our pace, joining the others as they turned toward town. As we walked together, I felt a sense of completion, of having come full circle. Not back to where I started, but to a new place entirely. A place of strength, of self-knowledge, of peace. 1 year after I moved to my beach house, I hosted a small celebration, not for a holiday or a birthday, but for what Rachel had dubbed my Independence Day, the anniversary of the day I had chosen myself. Rachel was there, of course, and Marilyn, and the women from my beach walking group. Andrew came with Emma, who was now a regular weekend presence at my house. Sarah didn't attend, but she had sent flowers with a card that read simply, "Congratulations on your year of freedom. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like." We gathered on my deck, which I had expanded over the summer with some of Robert's money, creating space for the long table where we now sat enjoying dinner as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. "A toast," Rachel announced, raising her glass. "To Laura Collins, the bravest woman I know, who showed us all that it's never too late to start again." "To Laura," the others echoed, glasses raised. I felt a flush of pleasure and embarrassment. "It wasn't bravery," I protested. "It was necessity. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," Marilyn corrected. "You could have stayed. You could have given up your room, your dignity, your independence. Many women would have." "Many women do," added Diane from the walking group. "They stay because it's easier than leaving, because they've forgotten how to put themselves first, because they think they don't deserve better." "But you chose differently," Rachel said. "You chose yourself." I looked around the table at these women who had become my friends, my support system, my community, at my son, who was watching me with quiet pride, at my granddaughter who had told me just last week that she was considering changing her major to gerontology because older people have so much to offer, but society treats them like they're invisible. I did choose myself, I acknowledged, and it was the hardest and best decision of my life. After dinner, as the sky turned to gold and crimson, we moved to the beach. Someone had brought sparklers, and we lit them like children, writing our names in light against the darkening sky, laughing as we tried to capture the fleeting moment in photographs. As the others played, Andrew came to stand beside me at the water's edge. "Happy anniversary, Mom," he said, putting an arm around my shoulders. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you," I said, leaning against him. "That means a lot coming from you." "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Leaving? Starting over?" I thought about the question seriously. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it became necessary. I regret the pain it caused you and Emma and even Sarah, but I don't regret choosing myself. I needed to remember who I was beyond being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's grandmother." Andrew nodded. "I understand that now. I didn't at first, but I do now." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the waves catch the last light of the setting sun. "Sarah and I are in a better place," Andrew said after a while. "The counseling is helping. We're learning to communicate, to respect each other's needs and boundaries." "I'm glad," I said sincerely. "We're talking about starting a family," he continued, a hint of excitement in his voice. "Not right away, but soon. We both want kids. We just needed to fix us first." The thought of another grandchild filled me with joy. "You'll be wonderful parents," I told him. "Both of you." "I hope so," he said. "I'm trying to learn from my mistakes, to be better, to do better." "That's all any of us can do," I assured him. Later, after everyone had gone and I was alone in my house, I stepped out onto my deck one last time. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds, the rhythmic sound of waves a constant, soothing presence. I thought about the year that had passed, the tears and laughter, the challenges and triumphs, the friendships formed and relationships mended. I thought about Robert and the gift he had left me, not just the money, but the understanding that I deserved a life of my own. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, sitting at that dinner table, hearing my son demand my room. How small I had felt in that moment, how diminished. And I thought about the woman I was now, standing tall, looking at the stars, living a life entirely of my own choosing. A life filled with morning walks on the beach, with book club meetings where the book was often forgotten in favor of laughter and conversation, with visits from Emma, who brought her energy and optimism into my quiet home, with occasional dinners with Andrew and Sarah, still sometimes awkward but increasingly genuine. A life where I mattered, where my needs, my desires, my happiness were valid, where I was not an afterthought, not a convenience, but a person in my own right. The next morning I rose early, as was now my habit, and made my way to the beach for my daily walk. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with impossible colors. I stopped and looked at that beauty, feeling completely present in the moment. A wave came and wet my feet. I smiled. Finally, after so many years taking care of others, asking myself what they needed, what they wanted, how I could help them, I was finally asking the most important questions. What do I need? What do I want? How can I help myself? And the answers were simple but profound. I need peace. I want freedom. I can help myself by choosing me. I took out my phone and took a selfie with the sunrise behind me. My hair was messy from the wind. My face was without makeup, with wrinkles that told the story of 70 years of life. But my eyes were shining in a way they hadn't shone in decades. I sent the photo to Emma with a message. "Good morning from paradise." She replied almost immediately with heart emojis, and then, "I love you, Grandma. You're my inspiration." I put the phone away and kept walking, because that was exactly what I was doing now. Keeping walking forward toward the life I deserved, toward the peace I had sought for so long. Finally, after many years of being a mother, a wife, a caregiver, after so many years of being everything to everyone but myself, I was the one who decided who to care for, and I had chosen to care for me.